let's say, so first of all, there are certain do's and don'ts that you should have, because earlier also we talked about that, when you are into technical writing, the grammar part has to be very strong, because you cannot afford to have an error prone, I mean, all the errors of grammar and syntax, in the document. So that's why it has to be ensured that all the document, every part of the document is error free. So how do we do that? First of all, the first point that you need to remember is that we will be using formal English, direct language, and simple terms. So formal English means that, you will be using those terms which are away from the emotional or, creative type of words. So that is formal English. Direct language would be simple sentences, straightforward, and simple terms, we understand it, right? Now, there are certain things that we need to follow. One is that you should avoid using contractions. Okay, so I hope we are clear enough what is contraction. For example, when we write I am, so in contracted form, we just write I apostrophe M. Okay, so first is that I will not use the contractions. Second is that I will avoid using personal pronouns. For example, I, we, you, all these things. So rather than that, what is the language that I can use rather than he, she, and all? The user, right? The coder. So I will use the designations rather than the pronouns, right? Okay. Now the second or the third thing that you have to take care of is that you should avoid using colloquialisms, jargons, cliches, sexist language, right? Now colloquialism is, what is colloquialism? Any idea? The kind of language wherein we use all those, slangs. So we say, we gonna go. You remember that kind of language? I gonna go. This is bloody hell. So all those kind of WhatsApp language that you use in normal language, in normal conversation, that has to be avoided. So we will not use those kind of words or letters, right? Then we have jargons. Obviously, we know what is jargon. So if we are using any technical term, we have to give a proper explanation, maybe the abbreviation, right? So all that has to be given. Cliches means basically the older usage of English. So there are certain words that are now not used, right? So we will avoid. So we will try to use the modern English rather than the older ancient English that used to be there. And sexist language, again, the gender specific. So you need not be gender specific. You should use the terms which can be common for both the genders, right? So for all the genders rather. So like the end user, the coder. So if I use the kind of designations, that could be avoiding the sexist language. So this has to be taken care of. Then again, you should have direct statements, active voice. You should avoid past tense. So now it's not that every time you have to avoid, wherever it is possible, you will use present tense. However, if there is something called as, if you are providing the approaches of previous writers, let's suppose. So there, anyways, you will have to give it in past tense, right? Or if you are giving the future scope, so there you will have to use the future tense. So that is unavoidable. But other than that, the general usage should be the present tense. Okay. Now let's come to the next point. It says parallel structure. Very, very important, people. As a technical writer, this is the thing that you use the most. That means using bullet points, right? So parallel structure means whenever there is a list of items or a list of ideas that we want to use, there can be two ways. Either I write a comma separated sentence, or I write it in the form of a bullet points, right? Now, if it is a very long sentence, giving it in comma, will that be a wiser choice? Writing it in comma separated sentence? No. So rather than that, I will try to put it in bullet points. Now, whenever you are using the bullet points, please remember to have an introductory line first. So just don't start writing directly the bullet points. So for example, if you are putting problems, so the heading is problems of business management, let's suppose. So you should have an introductory line. So you can say that in the process of business management, there could be many challenges. Some of them are something like that. So you should have an introductory line, and then we can have those bullet points. Now I have a question. You all have used a lot of bullet points, right? Now my question is that when we are using the introductory line, we have to put a colon. I hope that is clear to everyone, right? Now the question arises that whether the bullet points should be with the capital letter or with the small letter. How do you decide that the bullet points, the starting letter of the bullet point, that has to be capital or not? How do you decide that? Yes, people. So let's say here it is written aptitude. So A is capital, L is capital. But will it be in every case, or there are cases where we can have small letters as well? That is the question. Okay, let's write an example, because see, this is very important, people. You will be using a lot of bullet points, huh? So you have to be very careful. Now, there can be both instances, having capital letters and having small letters. Okay. Now, let me write this sentence and let's see what are the different ways in which we will have the small letters also. So here it is written, in preparation for the entrance exam, the students will review the following. Okay, so they are talking about the exam preparation, and then they are giving 3 points, right? So let me open this Word document. So I'm writing here that in preparation to the exams, we will review the following. Okay, so now okay, so now I have 3 points: aptitude. Then I had, what was the other point? Okay, now here, if you read the sentence carefully, you will see that the introductory sentence is complete in itself. See, that sentence is complete in itself. We don't have to change it, right? So I don't require to put, I mean, I can put these in capital letters, right? So let me just try to put it in lowercase. Okay, so yeah, so it says that in preparation to the exam, we will review the following, and then we have 3 points. Now, in place, if it would have been in preparation to the exam, we will. Okay, if there would have been the sentence like we will, and then the review the following would have not been written. Okay, so let's say that the sentence is only this much. Okay, I say we will. Now, is it complete or incomplete? Tell me. Which one of the following is the complete sentence? If we talk about the introductory sentence, the first one is complete, right? So whenever your introductory sentence is complete in itself, then the points that are followed are always in capital letter. Okay, so here I can have these in capital letter because these are separate entities, and that is why I can also put a full stop here, because these are all separate entities and we are not dependent upon any of them. However, in the second case, it's an incomplete sentence. So I will write, we will review the aptitude, do the logical reasoning. Okay. Then I say, complete the comprehension. Okay, so let's say that this is the sentence. Now, in this case, until and unless I read the entire sentence along with the bullet points, it's not complete. Right? Agreed, people? So in this case, all these will be in small letters, not capital. So I will say we will, and I will say review the aptitude, do the logical reasoning or solve the logical reasoning. I can say solve the logical reasoning and complete the comprehension. Are we clear? So here, in fact, you can also put a comma and then solve the logical reasoning again, comma, and then complete the comprehension. Now you can put a full stop. Did you get the difference between both of them? Why we are using capital letter here and why small? Huh? So please be very careful whenever you are writing the bullet points. Just have a look on the introductory sentence. If it is not complete in itself, it will always be in the small letters. So this has to be taken care. This is one of the syntaxes that you need to follow whenever you are doing the grammar part, right? Okay, let's go ahead. Now, if it is a very, very small sentence, then you can probably write it in a sentence form separated by commas. So, for example, you are writing something in conclusion or abstract. So there we don't write the bullet points. We directly give the sentence separated by the comma, right? Okay. Now, let's talk about the subject and verb. So I hope we are clear on subject verb agreement. For example, if I say he um, dash the water. So will it be drink or drinks? When the subject is singular, we put S, right? That's the singular verb that we are using. So the basic rule is that whenever the subject is singular, we put a singular verb. Now, singular verb means that I should have S or ES or IES depending upon the word. And if it is a plural word like we, you, they, then we will have the word without SES. I hope this one is clear, right? So that is the first rule that we follow for subject verb. Now, the second rule that we follow is along with the subject, there could be a supporting phrase. For example, this one, the club president along with the officers. So here, which subject will you consider? Club president or officers? Should I write the club president along with the officers are going to the conference, or the club president along with the officers is going to the conference? Is. Why? Because, you know, this is the main subject that we are talking about. The other, which is a comma separated phrase, is the accompanying part of the main subject. So we will not consider the plural or the singular form of this one. So we are not considering the number of the subject that is there with attached with the main subject. So we will just see the main subject, and because this is singular, that is why we have written is. I hope this is clear to everyone. Now it could be like this also, the book as well as the author, so that as well as the author will also be the part of the book. So there also the subject will be singular only. So all these supporting phrases that are there, we don't consider them in the form of a, I mean, in with the subject. We just consider the main subject as the this one. Now, if there could be a list with and, so in that case, will it be singular or plural? So if it is written platinum, gold, and lead, so will it be plural or singular? It will be plural because there are three subjects here, right? So whenever it is separated by and conjunction, it will always be plural form. Now there could be wherein you write nor or, right? There it could be singular, right? So when I'm using and, there it is plural, whereas if it is or, nor, you know, someone, somebody, anyone, each, so all these are singular that are considered. Now there could be subordinate clauses. That means it could be a complicated sentence, but here you have to see that the verb that you are using should be in accordance with the main subject. So here it will be Robert earned excellent grades because he worked very hard, right? So who is the main subject here? Robert, right? So whatever sentence we are making in terms of Robert. So the main subject has to be C. Now, again, here, educating the committee is difficult. So again, if there is an ing use, again, you have to see that this will be a singular form. So it is that we are using. We don't say educating the committee are difficult. Yeah. Educating becomes one single entity. So that's why we say is. If we have linking verbs like, the dogs. So here, in fact, I have ing form also, but then because the subject is plural, so that's why I'm using are, right? So this has to be taken care that you have to see the main subject basically for the subject verb agreement and not the attached phrases that are there. Okay. Now talking about active and passive. So we are very much clear on this, I think. We need to use active voice wherever possible. For example, see the example is given here. The sound's reverberation struck the walls. The walls were struck by the sound's reverberation. So active sentence is a more clearer one, and it has less words as well. The word count is also less. So that's why we prefer active voice and not passive. So they have given certain examples that we'll not go in. Okay, then cases of pronoun, and there are different types of pronoun. For example, there could be nominative, which we also called as subjective. I, we, you, he, we use them, right? Objective could be when you say, for example, for he, you say, I gave him the gift. So that him becomes objective, right? For we, it is, what do we use for we? Us, right? Are we clear on this? For I, what object do we use for I? So for again, let's see. For we are using us as objective pronoun, right? For he, we are using him. So likewise for she, what it will be? Her, correct. And for I, it will be me. For you, it remains you only. So for you, it remains you. For it would be it. It only, you is you only. But yes, for they, it will be them, right? So these are all object pronoun that we use. And then we have possessive pronouns. For example, his flat, her book, right? Their books. So all those things are possessive pronoun that we use. Okay. Now it says that, the owner is concerned about sales, but they will rebound. Now here you have to be very careful when we are using pronoun, and it's the other subject is also there. So here there are two subjects. One is owner and one is sales. Now, which one are you referring to? So you have to see, you have to examine the various constructions, right? And then you have to put it. So can you tell me, in the first sentence, the owner is concerned about sales, but they will rebound. So here they means what? Sales, right? Now see, that is why they have written they. Otherwise it could be he or she, right? For the owner. So you have to be careful. Again, it could create confusion. So rather than that, avoid using that kind of sentences where it could, give the chances of confusion. Now let's see this one. The president or his advisors should devote part of their time to this issue. So now tell me, which one are they considering? The president or his advisors should devote part of their time to this issue. So here, see, president is there, right? And then advisors is there. Now there are two subjects. Now you have to see the subject which is near to the verb. So the verb here is should devote, right? So you have to see the subject which is near to the verb. So near to the verb, the subject is singular or plural? Plural. So that's why we are saying their time. Otherwise we could say of his time or her time. So this has to be taken care. Whenever there are multiple subjects, you have to see the subject which is near to the verb, and based upon it we have to take the decision. Okay. Now let's see this one. The accountant, rather than any of the other officers, will be asked for his or her opinion of this purchase. Now because it is a future tense, so we are not very much concerned here. We can use when will be asked is correct, right? But opinion you will be taking like what? For the accountant or for the officers? The accountant, rather than any of the other officers, will be asked. So here, accountant, right? The other one is the accompanying part. It is the supporting phrase there. So that's why we will consider the accountant. So you have to be careful on these things. Now, the company name. Now, there could be a company name. For example, Stan and Smith. Now, I mean, maybe there are two names here, but still it will be considered as a single entity. Right? So Stan and Smith is considered to be one single company. I mean, even if there are two names, so that's why we have written has, not have. Right? So company name could be a collective noun, and all the collective nouns are singular. So whenever you have to write, like for example, we are talking about, give me some example of a collective noun, people. Class or group. So how do you say the class is naughty or the class are naughty? How do you say that? Or if we say this group is intelligent or this group are intelligent, is. So even if there are so many people in a single group, that entire group is considered to be one. So collective noun is always considered to be one. Right. Now you have to avoid the ambiguity as we were discussing. So it says, I worked hard on the experiment and it was difficult. Now this is sentence. Now see, there are so many conclusions that can be made by this single sentence. So either we are, either we are saying that the experiment was hard, or we are saying that the working hard was hard, So what exactly do you want to say? So can you tell me how to write the sentence? I worked hard on the experiment and it was difficult. So how do I correct this? So the one variation could be, I worked hard on the difficult experiment. Here clearly you are saying that the experiment was difficult, right? Now what else? What could be the other version? Okay, as the experiment was difficult, I worked hard. Again, the conclusion is that the experiment was hard. Sorry, the experiment was difficult. That's why it was, I was not able to work on it, right? Now, let's say if I say that it was difficult to work hard on the experiment, then what am I trying to say? It was difficult to work hard on the experiment. So what is difficult here in this sentence? So when I'm saying it was difficult to work hard on the experiment, which part am I saying that it is difficult? Experiment or working hard? Working hard, right? So you see that the same sentence can be made in different variations based upon what you want to portray. Now, you as a technical writer, you have to avoid an ambiguous sentence by which we are not clear. Because see, when you will be writing a product manual or a user manual, there you have to be very specific. You cannot afford to have ambiguous sentence, otherwise the whole meaning will change, right? So that's why ambiguity has to be removed from the sentences. Now there are different ways in which we use the compound words. So if there are group of words, there is one way to do it, putting hyphen, right? So you would have seen this usage, right, people? 7-hour day, 3-inch ruler, 85, 26. So all these words, these are compound words. So we join them with a hyphen. So when we want to, or a group of word to be considered as a single word, then we put hyphen. Can you give any example where we use hyphen? Any other example which is given on the screen apart from that? Any other example? E-learning, that is something which is anything which has E, that means electronic, right? So that will always be hyphenated. Any other word that we remember which we can put in hyphen? Remember this word end to end. Have you used this word? End to end. Yeah, so there we put hyphens, right? There are 3 words and we join them with hyphens. So end, hyphen to, hyphen end. So that's how we write it, end to end, right? So there can be so many words in which a compound word is considered to be a single one and we use hyphen. Whereas there are certain words wherein you don't need hyphen. For example, palm oil, eye opener. So here you don't need hyphen. So it's not that everywhere you have to put hyphen, only where, it's a compound word and you are looking for. So see, it's written end of year report. So this end of year, again, we are using hyphen here. Sand filtered purification system. So again, hyphen. So these are some of the usage. Now, the next rule that we need to follow is capitalization. Again, a very important concept, where to capitalize, where not to capitalize. Remember the reports and the assignments that I was checking. I keep on telling you that you should capitalize this, you should not capitalize this. So there are certain rules that we need to follow. First of all, whenever in any of the titles, apart from the articles and conjunctions, or preposition. So all these things, apart from these, every other word has to be initially capitalized. Okay, so for example, the effect of pandemic on IT industry. So obviously you will have T capital because it's the beginning. Then effect, you will have E capital. Okay, pandemic, P capital. Okay, IT industry. So again, IT and then I of industry. So all that has to be initial capital. So you can just leave the articles, the preposition, conjunction if there is any. Apart from this, everything has to be initial capitalized. The other rules are that when you are talking about a particular person or a proper noun, then we have to capitalize, right? What else? If there is a brand name or a trademark, then also you have to capitalize. Or if you are writing an address, so there, for example, volume number, catalog number. So here also capitalization is needed. Okay. If it is a subject name, also a nationality or a language, then it has to be capitalized. If it is a title, for example, congressman. So congressman is a title, much like president or prime minister. So here it will be capitalized. Then if it is a professor and then something is written, so again it is capitalized. So all this will be capitalized. Okay, now this is a sentence here. This sweater was made in the east. Turn west on M20. Now, can you tell me why in the first instance we are using capital for east, and then in second one we are using small letter for west? Why is it? I hope you understood. The sentence that is given here on the screen, in the first one, E is capital for this direction, but in the second one, W is small. Why is it? So actually what happens is, people, whenever we are just giving the directions, like the sun rises in east, we are going towards west. So all those directions, there you can use the small letters. Wherein if you are talking about a certain region, because in the first one, it is actually talking about the eastern region. So it is same like using some place or a country, right? So that's why it is capital. So when it is a particular region that we are talking about, it will be capital. If it is only as a direction, then it will be small, right? Okay. What else? Then again, the company names are there. Eastman Kodak Company. So again, it is capital. Uh, these degrees should not be capital. Sometimes we have this myth that, you have to put the degrees in capital. That's not required. For example, doctorate, bachelor's. So all this should not be capitalized. Again, junior, senior, all this is not required to be capitalized. Okay. So this, again, capitalization is a very important thing. Need to take care of it. Now, so till now we have talked about the hyphens, we have talked about the capitalization, right? Now, the other thing that we need to take care of is when we are representing the numbers, right? So what is the general rule that you use, people, while you are writing a number? So let's say we are using the numbers like 10, 35, 42. So what is the general rule for that? How do you write it? You write it in numbers or you write it in words? Okay, now there is a particular rule that we follow, people. If it is a number from 1 to 10, then probably we can use the words like ONE, 1, TWO, 2, like that, right? But if it is a big number like 35, 46, so there we avoid using it, rather than we can write it in number. Now, again, in technical writing, there are certain other rules as well. For example, if you are giving the number of appliances, so for example, see this one, the discussion lasted for 10 minutes. So here I am using 10 as word. Now here is the number of appliances. So here also I can use it in words. 30 appliances. So here I can use it as like. Again, here the number of people are there. So 20 people. Right. So number, when we are considering the number of that thing, there we can use as a word. Otherwise, if it is a, like, see this one, now here it is a mixed fraction, so it's a very complicated number. It's writing it in words would also increase the word count, and also it will, it can complicate. So that's why we can just directly write 10 and a half, right? But then if it is a simple fraction, then we can say 1/4, right? 2/3. So that ways we can write it in words. Again, if it is like this one, see the example, 500 4-page booklets. So what do you understand by this? What is the meaning of this, people? 500 4-page booklets. Right. So the number of booklets are 500, but then the booklet in itself, it's a 4-page booklet, right? That's what we are trying to say, right? That's what you are saying, right? Yeah. Now see, yeah, these are the complicated ones. So here the number 500 I have written as a number, whereas in the hyphenated one I have written 4-page. So here I can use as a word. So you have to be very cautious when you are using double usage. So here the one usage is with the compound words, right? So it's a 4-page booklet. So that's why I have used the hyphen, and the quantity, the entire quantity is 500. So I have written it in the number. Again, if it is a very big, like million or billion counting that is there, again, you can avoid using the words. You can just use the number. So this is how, these are some of the rules for use. Now let's come to a rule which says that and which. Okay, actually here that is more used as a demonstrative pronoun, like this, that, and all. Okay, now my question is, there is this sentence which says the lecture that was given yesterday was quite useful. Now, can we write the lecture which was given yesterday was quite useful? Can we use here which rather than that? I said if the sentence is the lecture that was given. So I'm saying if I, instead of writing that, I write the lecture which was given yesterday was quite useful. So can we write it like this? Or the other one, I went to a park yesterday that was built by XYZ. So can I use that instead of which? So how do you decide that whether I have to use that or which? That is the main question. Are we just putting our guessing work here? That, okay, this one is looking better version, so let's put that. Is it? So problem is that with grammar, we take grammar very lightly. Huh? We just think that, okay, I'll try to put both the versions. Let's see which one is looking better. We'll use that. That's the technique. We all are using it. No worries. Huh? Everyone uses it. Do we do that? Tell me honestly, people. We do it, right? Sometimes we do it. Sometimes, most of the times we do it. Now, see, when you are as a technical writer, you have to be very careful. You have to know the exact rules. Then only you will be able to write an error-free sentence. So let's say now when it is written, I went to a park yesterday. Even if I don't write the other part, which was built by XYZ, that is an additional information that has been given, right? Then also it is making sense. So I can also write, I went to a park yesterday, full stop, right? So which is used in the instances wherein we are trying to give a better definition or trying to explain it in a more better way, in a better way, right? There we use which. Okay, whereas that we will use wherein it has to be the part of the sentence and I cannot avoid it. For example, when it says, see the sentence on the screen, the article that was printed in the newspaper yesterday. So here this is the part of the sentence and I cannot just say that the article, that would not make sense. So that's why that is always used when it is a restrictive environment wherein you have to use that part, you cannot eradicate it. Wherein see the second part, it says the ballerina was dancing around the room wearing a baseball cap, which is not something you would expect, right? Now, which is being used as an additional information. Are we clear on the difference, people? So wherever it is a part of the sentence and you cannot remove it, otherwise the meaning would not be there, then it is that. And in the second case, if it is an additional information, always you will find whenever we are using which, it will always have a comma. Okay, and then you can write which was built by XYZ, right? So wherever we are using which, we have to have a preceding comma here, just to say that the additional information has been given. Whereas when we talk about the usage of that is the very much part of the main sentence. Now see, it says, realize that you will be asked for your opinions about topics in which you do not feel completely comfortable. So here, see, in the first one, it's a compulsory usage. Realize that you will be asked for your opinions about topics. Now, in which you do not feel comfortable, this is an additional information. So this is how we use it. Now, also you should avoid using multiple usage of that and which. That will create complication. For example, see the sentence. There are other factors that contribute to the uncertainty that were not considered in blah, 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 whatever, right? So instead of that, either you can break the sentence, all right, or you can have a comma, or you can use which if it is an additional information, but avoid using that multiple times. Now we are proceeding towards the punctuation. Okay, again a very important tool. Comma, full stop, semicolon, colon. Now all these tools are very strong in writing. Okay, and where to put which one is also very important according to the use and purpose of the particular punctuation mark. Now let's see. It says punctuation is used to clarify the sentence structure, right? If we need to avoid misreading or misconception, so there we use the punctuations. Now normally a punctuation comma will be used to prevent reading the general errors. So for example, if I'm saying in general, errors fall into two categories. So I should have a comma after in general. Why? Because this is the introductory words. Those are the two introductory words. After that, we should always have a comma. Errors fall into two categories. Can you tell me what should I put after categories? Errors fall into two categories, colon, and then we can have a bullet list, right? So that's how we should write. Now see the other example. If you write in this experiment, error could have been introduced. Now we are not putting the comma, it can create confusion. Rather, we should write in this experiment and then a comma and then the sentence. So normally in the introductory sentences, the introductory words, I should always have a comma. So this is the usage of the comma. Now the other usage of comma is when you are using as a separated list. For example, the experiment was conducted quietly, quickly, and satisfactorily. So here, because it's a list, that's why we are using comma. Okay. Again, the same sentence. Or if you have a very big sentence, so after each pause, after each a pause of the idea, you can always have, normally in the conditional sentences, like if you do this, comma, then this happens, something like that. Or if it is when preparing documents, comma, check with the publisher, professor, or company for the required form and be consistent. So here, because it was a complicated sentence, that's why I have used comma. Now, is there any other way to write this sentence? People, the last sentence that you see, is there any other way to write it? So can we say the following things can be done when preparing documents? Can we say that? Yeah, and then we can put a colon and say, check with the publisher, check with the professor, check with the company for the required form, and last point could be consistent, right? So we can have different points. Now, please remember, whenever you are making a bullet point, the consistency should be there. For example, if it is written check with the publisher, again you are using the same word, check with the professor, so then it is a repetition. So rather than having that same word again and again, either you can write it in the introductory sentence itself. So you can say, when preparing documents, check the following, and then you can write publisher, professor, company, and consistency. So there we will not write be consistent, you will write consistency, because you have to have those parallel structure. I hope this is clear. So either you can have all the nouns or you can have all the verbs. So if I have written check the following, so that means I am checking the pointers. So the first one is publisher, second one is professor, third one is company, then fourth one should be a noun, because every other word is also a noun. So it has to be consistency, not be consistent. All right. Now, when we have a series of clauses, there also you need a lot of commas. Like, see, this is again a very big sentence. Included within this report are theory and methods of analysis, equipment and experimental setup, procedure guidelines, result, a discussion of results, and conclusion. So see, it's a very long sentence. I would prefer to go for the bullet points. If in case in the abstract or conclusion you have to write such a sentence, then you can use commas, right? Again, if it is a coordinating conjunction, for example, and, so, but, so there also you should have a comma before that. So like this one, the final session ended, then a comma, and the student went home. John saw the car coming towards the bike, comma, so he started to scream. So before all these coordinating conjunctions also, we need a comma. Okay, now after an introductory verbal phrase, this we have already discussed, like after, although, as, at, because, so when, while, so all these words we use comma. Looking to the future, and then we write comma, and then he began to contribute. Now again, in the date format, you also need a lot of commas. For example, when the day is written on May 15, then you put a comma, then you put 2005. Okay, so this is how you write it in the date format. In the conditional sentence, again, if we advertise a product, comma, our sales will increase. So this is the usage of comma. We can also have it when a phrase is being used. So remember that thing, the club president as well as the committee officers. So that accompanying phrase will be separated by comma. For example, the first one, the 4 articles, comma, all of which were published in important journals, comma, and then. So wherever the idea is changed, we are putting a comma. So normally in a very complicated sentence, there's a lot of commas that you will find. See the last one also. Again, this is an introductory, that indeed is what we expected from the experiment. Or the second one, all of the test results, comma, it seems, will have to be reanalyzed. So again, wherever my phrase or the part of the sentence is changing, the idea is changing, I am putting a comma, normally to avoid confusion. The showcase, showing the true skills. So again, if you are trying to explain something, then also you should have a comma. So I'm saying the showcase, what is it doing? Showcasing the true skills. So that's why I put a comma. Now let's see the last example. It says the book My Life, written by Mr. Smith, was a bestseller. And the other version is the book written by Mr. Smith was a bestseller. Now, whenever you have different forms where you have written the name, then you have written, the author name, and then you have given the quality of that book. So here, three different things are given. So that's why I have put the comma. Whereas in the second one, I have omitted some things, right? Like the book, the name of the book is not there. And I have not used, so here I can use a sentence without a comma. So I'm saying the book written by Mr. Smith was a bestseller. So here the idea is not changing. It's a single sentence. Wherein in the first one, I have a little pause after the name of the book, after the author, and then the bestseller. Okay, so these are certain instances where I will use the comma and I can write the sentences. Okay, now what about the colon? Where do we put the colon, people? Where do we use the colon? So number one, it could be when you are giving the bullet points, right? There is a list of items and you are giving the bullet points, then you can use a colon. Now, again, the same rule will apply for the capitalization. So see the sentence here. It says the lab needed 2 more pieces of equipment to fill the contract, a vise and a drill press. So here it is written in a single sentence. That's why there is no capital letter. See? Whereas in the second one, it says he had to make a choice. Now, there are 2 different choices. Both of them are independent sentences. So that's why we are writing with the capital letter and with a proper punctuation mark. So the first choice is, should he tell the truth? Or the second choice is, should he protect his family? So both the sentences will have initial capital. Also, they will have a punctuation. Is this clear, people? Are we clear on this? Okay, now see the second one. It says the faculty board made a final decision. Now, what was the decision? Students submitted work must meet technical writing standards throughout their curriculum. So this is the entire sentence. So that's why, again, initial capital with the full stop and colon is there. So whenever I pause for a list or for an idea to be presented, there I use a colon. And then after that, it depends. If it is a complete sentence, then it will be initial capital with a punctuation mark. If it is not, then I can use a small letter. I hope this colon thing is clear. See, the example is given here. Professor Smith's qualifications include, and then these are the 3 qualifications. So they have mentioned it, right? Colon is also used as an URL, right? For the website or the links that you give. So there also we use colons. Now, what is the use of semicolon, people? Where do we use semicolon? So see, a semicolon is something which is more than a comma and less than a full stop or a colon, you can say. Okay, so that means that if you have a complete sentence within itself, okay, and now you want to present a little different idea, a different sentence, which will be complete in itself also, but it will be somehow the part of the previous sentence, then we use the semicolon. I'll repeat. I'm saying that suppose there are 2 sentences, both are connected with a similar idea, but the first sentence is complete in itself and the second one is also complete in itself. But still we want both of them to be the part of the same sentence because they are closely related. Then that is the time when I put a semicolon. For example, it says the brochures have already been printed. Now there is something which is related to it. However, it's a complete sentence within itself. That's why we have put a semicolon. And when we are saying however, and then comma, they have not yet been distributed. So are we clear? Normally in the terms like however and all, we use the semicolon and then after that we use a comma. Is this clear why we are using semicolon? Let's say that we have 2 sentences, both of them are closely related, but still both of them are complete in itself. Right? So if they are complete in itself and they are the part of same idea, I will put a semicolon rather than a full stop because I want them to be the part of similar sentence, but then they are complete in itself. That is why I'm not putting a comma. I'll tell you why we are not using the full stop, because the other part is also closely related to the first one. So what we could do, either I could put a full stop and then say however, comma, so H could be capital, and that can also be one way of writing it. But whenever there are 2 sentences which are very close, in terms of idea, right, and we want them to be the part of the same sentence, then we put them as a semicolon rather than a comma. So comma, why are we not putting the comma? Because it is complete in itself. We normally put a comma when it is not complete. But here the sentence, the brochure have already been printed. This is a complete sentence. right? But I want that the other sentence which is succeeding it should also be the part of this entire thing, because the idea is very closely related. That's why instead of putting a full stop, I'm putting a semicolon. Is it clear? So likewise, see the second example also. It says, make sure to select the correct term. Now see, the other part that is written there is also a part of this only, but both of them are complete sentences within itself. Then it says, review the list of commonly misused words in Appendix E. So because this is also the part of the first one only, if you see it very carefully, it is also the part of the process of correcting the terms, right? So that's why we have written it in the same sentence rather than putting a full stop. And why not comma? Because it is complete in itself. Are we clear now? The entire thing is the part of the same process. However, both are complete in itself. Okay. So rather than putting them in bullet points, I'm trying to put them in a single sentence, and each of them are a single entity, a separate entity. But if we combine them, it becomes a one whole process. Yeah, that's how you can understand. All right. Now let's see. There are certain instances wherein you use this dash that you see here. So again, when you are using this dash, before that, again, we can have a semicolon. For example, this one, the research conclusions are exciting. Now, the other part is also the part of this sentence only, but because it is giving it a separate list within itself, that's why I have put a semicolon. And then I am saying it will revolutionize how cheese. Now I want to explain cheese. So I'm saying the greatest of all Wisconsin's exports will be made in the future. So this whole entire, this entire thing is a part of single idea, but because I wanted to have a pause here, that's why I kept this semicolon. Okay. So these are some of the usage of semicolon here. Okay. Now see, semicolon can also be used when multiple dates are used. Now, can you tell me why semicolon? Why are we using semicolon rather than comma if we have multiple dates in a same sentence? So it will create a lot of confusion, right? A lot of commas will be there. Plus, we already know the concept of semicolon. When the entire entity is being talked about, there we use semicolon. So this one entity, this one entire date is one single entity. So that's why we can separate them with semicolon. Again, we can use semicolon if, before a coordinating conjunction. If we have two main clauses to separate them, then also we can use. So very complicated sentence. For example, this one, his determination, his courage, and his sincerity could not be denied. Now, this one is an entire sentence with commas and all, but within itself, it's a complete sentence. But his methods were often questioned. Now, again, a complete sentence. Just before the coordinating conjunction, I have put a semicolon. I will not put a comma because it's a complete sentence within itself. That's why I'm not putting comma. I'm putting a semicolon. Okay, now talking about the apostrophes. So tell me if I can use sentences like this one. I am. So can I use I apostrophe am? Can I use words like this? They apostrophe re. Can I use it in technical writing? This is contractions. And in the very first slide, we discussed that contractions will be avoided, right? So in technical writing, we will avoid contractions. We will only use apostrophe when it is the case of possessive, right? For example, Sue's notebook, or we are saying boy's room. So words like that. So there only we will use apostrophe, otherwise we'll avoid it, right? Like for example, see, it's written the waitress's manner, the crisis origin. Now, you also have to be very careful when you are using the words which are ending with S. For example, if it is written the plural form of boys, then how do you use the apostrophe? If it is a plural form of boys, like boy, so it is boys. How do you use the apostrophe? After S, right? At the end. Whereas if it is a single boy's room, then I will say BOY, then I will put an apostrophe and then S, right? So we have to be careful with that. See, the example is given here, the boys' accounts. Now here I'm talking about the plural form of the boys. Whereas there are some irregular plurals where, for example, men. So this is a plural of man. So that's why here I can easily use apostrophe and then S. So I can say men's, right? But in this case, it has to be boys, right? And then we can have other sentences as well. These are some exceptions like Jesus, Moses. So again, S. So we are not putting Jesus's. So we'll just write apostrophe after the word. Okay. Now, how do we use the quotation marks? Again, a very useful and confusing punctuation. So normally, where do we use the quotation marks, people? Where do we exactly use the quotation marks? Report a speech, right? Somebody said something and you want to highlight that. So that's how we put the quotation. So the reported speech, or you can say the direct speech that we use, that is put in the inverted commas. So if you see the first example, it says he said, then we put a comma and then the inverted commas. I will review and edit my documents carefully. Now I have a question. How do you decide that the punctuation should be put within the quotation mark or outside the quotation mark? How do you decide that? So why is in the first sentence I am putting full stop within the quotation mark? And why in the last one I am using the semicolon after the quotation mark? So what is the difference here? So normally, when do we put a full stop? When the sentence is complete in itself, right? So this entire dialogue is complete in itself. I will review and edit my documents carefully. So that's why I have put the full stop inside the inverted commas. Whereas if you see this one, it says, you said, I will turn in my work before leaving. It was not in my mailbox. So here, this part is not the part of the dialogue. It is the part of the main sentence. And that is why after the quotation, I am putting the semicolon. So basically, if the sentence that you are putting further is not the part of the dialogue, is not the part of the direct speech, I will put it outside the quotation mark. And that is why the semicolon is outside the quotation. See, when Joe asked the question, did you see the rose cross the room? The rose appeared before our eyes. So why is the question mark inside the quotation mark? Why is it? So the reported speech is a question in itself, right? You are actually asking a question. So that is why it is within the question mark, I mean, within the inverted commas. Whereas if you see the second example, it says, did the delivery person say, I left the package in the basement? So here, without even starting these exclamation marks, it's the entire sentence is a question. Can you see? It has started with a question word. Did the delivery person say? So that means this entire sentence would be a question, and that is why we have put it outside the quotation mark. This question is not the part of the reported speech. Rather, it is the part of the entire sentence. That's why we are putting the question mark outside. Are we clear? What is the difference between both of them? Yes, people? So whenever your reported speech has a question, then we put the question mark inside. When the entire sentence is a question, then obviously the question mark will be outside. Same is this. Now, if the dialogue that was said is in a form of an emotion, or is it a form of exclamation, then we are putting the exclamation mark inside. See, the student cried. Now, whatever he said was the part of exclamation. That's why we said the power is on and then the exclamation. Okay, now talking about the parentheses or the brackets. Now, normally we avoid single quotations because single quotations would rather be used only in the styling of the references. So wherever you are using the particular style of the reference, there you will use, otherwise you will avoid, right? Okay. So either if we want to emphasize, suppose you want to emphasize a word, so rather than putting in quotations, you can just put as italics. So that can be done, or you can put an end note or a footnote to it. Or if it is a reported speech, then we put it in a double inverted commas. Okay, single quotes we avoid. It's not that you cannot use it at all, but using multiple punctuation marks can also be a complication in technical documents. So we normally avoid it. Okay. All right. Now talking about the brackets, where do we usually use brackets, people? So normally you would have seen in the notices. So when there are some notice, in the bracket, some additional information is given. For example, see this. It's written, the new fee schedule is effective September 1, 2005. Now, this is the additional information. All students have been notified. Again, so this is one way of putting the brackets. Now, there can be another way of putting the bracket wherein you want to explain the term. Okay, you want to explain this term, or you want to give some information, but you don't want to be the part of the main text. So you just put it in the bracket. That means that if I delete that bracket, then also everything is okay, right? So for example, this one, all faculty will be placed on a 9-month appointment. Now, even if I delete all this, it makes sense. But if I want to give some additional information, that's why we are putting it in bracket, provided other requirements have been met. So this is some additional information that I am providing you, right? So these are the uses of bracket. Now, there could be two types of dashes that we use. One is the hyphen that we already know, right? That's called N dash. And the other one is a big dash that you see. So that's called M dash. So technically in MS Word, Word documents, you will find N dash and M dash. So you can normally insert it from the symbols. So you can say insert and then symbols. So there you will find both these, N dash and M dash, or you can find it on your keyboards. So do you know how to put this M dash? N dash, I know you would know, the minus sign, right? But how do we put this M dash? Any idea? Okay, let me tell you. When you will press Control with num minus, that means the number key, number pad that you have, there you have a minus key, right? So with Control, you press that, then you will get this bigger dash. Is it clear? The shortcut key. Okay. So this is how you will put the bigger dash, which says M dash. Now, the question is that why do we need M dash? Why do you need that bigger dash? Smaller dash, you know, to give a range or to give a compound word, right? Also, when you are trying to explain some name, like this one, see, my name is, and then you are trying to explain that name. So with every letter, you are putting a dash, right? That's how also we do it. Also, we do it in the mobile phone number patterns. So 3, 4, 2, like this. So 3 numbers clubbed together, then 4 numbers clubbed together. You would have seen it in toll-free numbers, right? 1-800, and then we have those dashes. Now the question arises that why do we use this bigger dash? What is the use of this? Why do you need this? Actually, whenever we are trying to give a list of items, there also we use this bigger dash. Also, we can use it when we are trying to explain some term. Okay, so for example, you have written like the effect of pandemic in COVID-19, and then if you want to explain it, so this is another way to do it. So after COVID-19, you can put a bigger dash and then give the definition of it. So a disease which causes fever or whatever, right? So that also. So if you are trying to explain a term, or if it is a list of items. So in both the cases, I can use this bigger dash. So please remember this. These are some of the rules that we should know. I mean, we should try to follow them. Okay.